There we go. We're live. Okay. So let me push this on a couple of social media just to make sure we maximize the reach. There we go. There we go. Here we go. Welcome to everyone joining. Let us know in the comments if you hear us well. We will start in about 2 to 3 minutes. Oh, there we go. There we go. Perfect. There we go. Okay. Let me check LinkedIn. Yep, we're live everywhere. Welcome everyone. Let us know in the comments if you can hear us well. Say hi. Where are you located? We're super interesting. This is not a recording. That's a live podcast. There we go. All right. Okay, we'll give people another 2-3 minutes to join, and then we'll give it a start. I love the setup of your background. It's a bit wabi-sabi in the Japanese style.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Perfect. So everything is on. People are joining. Cool. Excellent. There we go. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this live podcast. Again, this is not a recording. So let us know in the chat if you hear us well, where you're from, and if you know my guest today. We'll start in about 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, perfect. YouTube. Get share a link. There we go. Brilliant. Okay. Wonderful. All right. Switching my glasses as part of the ritual. That's how people know it's about to start. Hi, Sam. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, you're welcome, Riley. Looking forward to a great conversation again.
Yes, absolutely. The tech challenged us a little bit. There's always that demo effect. You think everything is bulletproof, and then not.
That's the way it works.
Exactly. Sometimes you can have the best plan, then reality slaps you in the face. As Mike Tyson says, it always hurts.
Yeah.
So today, I wanna have this casual conversation with you, discover who you are, what is it that you do, and share some actionable and tactical insights so that people can implement that at the end of this conversation.
Sure.
Cool?
Yeah, those are great goals.
Yes, exactly. I love this. And then at the end of this session, we will drop a little gift to all the folks who were patient enough to stay. But I promise you, I kid you not, this is worth it. So the first thing, as always, so people who came from your invitation know you, but my audience, they don't know you. So who is Sam? And I want to challenge you a little bit because I would like you to explain us what you do as if you were explaining it to kids. Like, just like, if you went to those father-daughter day at school or these kind of things, how would you explain that?
Yeah. So Sam Palazzolo Ex-Deloitte. I'm the product of, I want to say, 2 decades worth of consultation work, helping businesses and their leaders grow. I've led a career path that's been like a roller coaster. It's had some high highs, some low lows. But overall, for the last 12 years, I've kind of manned the helm at Tip of the Spear Ventures, which is a family office. When we formed it 13 years ago, nobody was calling them family offices. We've been called a venture capital firm. That shoe fits. We've been called a private equity firm. That shoe fits. We've been called a consultancy, and that shoe really fits. I spend the majority of my time today working with a handful of leaders to help them as well as their businesses scale and grow. And we've taken organizations, including our own Riley, from 1 to 10 million and 10 million to $1 billion and beyond. So industries of focus for us are technology. Again, I've led a couple of tech initiatives to exit. Healthcare, I've got a passion for healthcare. I think it's broken not only at the patient-facing level, but the insured care backdrop. And the third area, I'm in New York City. It's awfully hard not to do something here that's not finance or fintech related. So, to get to your question about the challenge, how can I explain what it is that I do to a fourth grader or around there? This is the easiest way. If you've ever been a leader in one of those roles and you have had one of those, I have no idea what to do next. I have tried a whole bunch of stuff. Nothing seems to be working. I'm the guy to call because we typically identify in a very Deloittean-like methodology what it is that you're currently working on and what is going to produce the most bang for your buck, meaning high ROI from a top line revenue generation based on your activities. And so maybe that's a little high level for a fourth grader, but the part of, I've tried a whole bunch of things. I'm just not certain what to do next. I think that's where the majority of leaders outreach connect with me, or they're having success in a certain area, and they recognize, look, we should be having more success, or compare contrast with some of the peers or competitors out there. We seem to be leaving opportunities on the table. So how do we capitalize on that? So anyway, that's kind of a little bit about me and some of the work that I do. I'm more going to get into it. We developed a 5-pillar methodology of how it is that we go about analyzing a business, and we can talk about that at length today. Oh, I can't hear you anymore.
My bad. It's me muting
There we go.
myself. So I like personally to describe me as the family doctor of startups. So when they have a pain or they think they have a pain, but they don't know what exactly and they don't know which specialist go to, like just come to me and I'll sort of triage and redirect them. So I have a sense that you kind of do the same, but at a slightly higher level than me, with a wider spectrum of capabilities, right?
Maybe. I mean, I think we're all working in the same venue or the arena, trying to help leaders grow. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, I think your focus might be organization size from early stage startup through a couple million top line revenue. Our revenue, I want to say the band that we've found really great success working within is the SMB category, 25 million up to 250 million. So,
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you are the next couple of steps, which is fantastic. Which is why I wanted to have this conversation because I'm like a couple of steps lower. So I wanted to give people the full spectrum of possibilities. I love that. And so my next natural question is, how does one go from working in Deloitte to building a family office focusing on this aspect? What is your origin story?
so I born and raised in Detroit. I'm the product of a single family household. From the time I went away from the time of birth all the way till the time I went away for undergrad, and I always knew there was a big world out there. I wanted to go see it. And so that's kind of what I set out to do. I've I've moved 20 times from New York to Honolulu, Hawaii, and a whole bunch of places in between. So it's kind of one of those things where I come from a long line of Italian fishermen who'd be gone for months at a time out on a fishing schooner, and so I guess I have that nomadic. I'm going to go and travel. I'm going to go and see what's out there. I think it also explains why what a couple of years I've tapped out at 50 out of 52 weeks of the year traveling, doing business on the road. You know, I I love it. And while I'm a big proponent of this, virtual meeting rooms,
Yeah.
you know, there's nothing like the face-to-face interaction that you can have with clients, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree. 100% agree. Yeah. Traveling a lot. You cannot remove the Italian nature out of a man.
No, exactly.
Yeah. And um so how old is your family office again?
13 years.
Okay, 13 years. So
Yeah.
that's still quite a solidly established business, right?
Yeah, I mean, the family office is basically, it is what it is. We're fortunate. We're a fund-to-fund house, in
Mm.
as much that we have a couple of fund managers that we believe in. Our model is maybe unique within the space,
Mm.
but I don't think it is. I mean, we take a percentage of what it is that we drive revenue from other business opportunities or portfolio companies. At the end of the year, we take a percentage of those proceeds, we flip them over the wall to our fund managers and let them deploy. It's not 100% of what it is that we do, but it is one of those things where we have really great fund managers that work with us. So from that perspective, but the family office runs itself. Again, my primary business is working with leaders to help them grow, scale. That's where I find the most enjoyment out of what it is that I do.
Mm. Very interesting. I want to rebound on what you just said. Um you said you find enjoyment in helping those leaders. Why? Why is that?
Because that's what the excitement is.
Okay.
When I look back at my career, whether I was working at a Fortune 500 company, I was working within the SMB, I was always looking for what is it that we can fine tune. Sometimes it's a minor dial tweak, sometimes it's a major dial twist. But what is it that we can fine tune to make people, processes, technology come together better? And I'm convinced that there's never a better opportunity than today to make those things come together, regardless of what your focus is. If you're a service provider, if you're a product seller, if you're a
Mm.
service business, there's never been a better time to attempt to fine tune your business.
Mm.
And and the differences can be staggering. I've worked with organizations where it's been the impossible, where they were like, we're actually going to lose money this year. And it's like, not anymore. Here's our mentality that we need to have. And more importantly, let's dig in and let's
Mm.
find out where it is that we're not accelerating, or maybe we're leaving opportunities on the table, as I mentioned earlier.
Mm.
Sometimes a leader will come to me and they say, Sam, I'll give you a great example. One of them was with me 9 years ago.
Mm.
He subsequently left the organization, started his own company. He just connected with me about 4 months ago, and he said, "Sam, I've I've tried everything in the Sam book of tricks. I've got the bag of tricks over here. We've gone through it. We've tried everything to grow organically, people, processes, technology. I'm at the point where I need to grow inorganically through M&A. Can you help me with that?" And a lot of the work that I did, be it at Deloitte or on my own, was exactly in this arena. It's the uh, pre-merger alignment, deal origination, deal execution, and then post-merger integration. Just to make certain that, yeah, we're looking at the right types of companies, we're acquiring them, and then we're folding them in without disruption to the culture at the main business, right?
Mm.
So, I always say that if you wanted to get a 10x, we can look at organic type. What is it that we're doing, right? If you want to get an exponential pop, think of your top line revenue times itself. That's where you need to explore some of these inorganic M&A or IPO type opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Two things, two things that popped into my mind when you were explaining this. I love this quote. I don't remember who is it from, but sometimes using the only thing that you can get using tricks is candy.
Yeah,
And if you're a business and you want substantial results, sometimes you have to get outside of the path. And again, I love this something called the Shinkansen effect. It's like the Japanese bullet train. If you have a vehicle that has a certain speed and you want to double or 10x the speed, sometimes or most of the times upgrading that vehicle is not enough. You need to build a completely new one. I
right.
think Guy Kawasaki calls this jumping the curve. It's like you need to play at a completely different league because you have reached what you can do with these things. Like it's good for a minor percent here and there, but if you drastically want to change things, you drastically need to change the structure. And for that, you mentioned three words: people, process, and technology. Can you tap into that a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, this is how Deloitte's made its money in a consulting framework. They go into an organization, they do a quick readiness assessment to identify, where are the strengths, where are the weaknesses in those three categories: people, process, and technology. And then you
Mm-hmm.
look at the integration or the what's happening as we go from the technology, for example, the impact technology has on both processes as well as people element. So technology, people, process, and then you can analyze it from the other aspects of it. You know, it sounds relatively simple. It's meant to be complicated, but I guess I've done it for so long that when we go into an organization, we look to see where is it that we can really have maybe not necessarily that boomerang effect or playing at a different level, but what is it that we're not doing that we know we should be doing, right? What is it that we're not doing that we know we should be doing? This is one of my favorite questions to ask a leader when I meet with them, because typically the leader will know. They know that either I'm not managing my calendar appropriately, I'm taking on way too much. I have no ability to say no. Or I'm taking on way too much because I just don't know how to delegate. There's
Mm.
those types of when we think of leadership effectiveness and what it takes to really drive forward as a leader, those are some of the simple things that come to top of mind for me. But people, process, technology, we've bolstered it with our five pillar methodology from there.
Yes, absolutely. Um, I want to quickly pause on this and welcoming the people who are joining us live today. Again, this is live, not a recording. So ask your questions and drop your questions to Sam. Leverage that really important moment. And we were discussing people, process, and technology. And we'll shift. I'll try to make the shift to the startup world and see if I can get you some cool insights. Um, so yeah, I see that often. Some business founders and leaders sometimes have the answers to their question, but they need that. I like this term. They need that consigliere. The consigliere is that person in the mafia, the mob, that sort of has high trust and really tries to advise as much as possible and tell the truth. And sometimes that's what they need.
No, it's exactly the truth. I have had clients, we're in a traditional service like business like this, you'd like to think that you're going to get referrals. And I remember I was asking a gentleman who we'd worked with for a couple of years, excuse me, we had some great success. Hey, look, I'd love to have a referral. Who is it that is within your network, who's running an operation
Mm.
that you might be able to introduce us to? And his response to me, I'll never forget it. One, we were playing golf. It was a beautiful day. We were on the ninth tee box. Um, but he looked at me and he said, "Sam, I'm never going to introduce anyone to you. You are my best kept secret." And I guess I kind of looked at it. On the one hand, I was disappointed. I was like, we've done such great things. I should be able to leverage the relationship that I have with him with others that are in his network. But I also kind of get it. If we do our job right and working with businesses and the leaders therein, you know, if we're the best kept secret behind their success, I'll take that, right? I think
Yeah.
it's one of those types of things. I grew up in a very conservative family in Detroit. We were always taught that you didn't have to have, all of your stripes visible on your sleeve or your shoulder. It's kind of one of those things where the recognition and the fame, that's kind of irrelevant. The work that you do, obviously getting compensated for it, but the results should speak for themselves. It kind of goes to you were talking about startups, and one of the things that I know it's difficult in a startup scenario. You've got to have traction, right? And the bigger the client that you can get from a traction perspective, the better off you'll be. I can say it with clarity and consistency. The same holds true for older legacy, larger established businesses as well. But it's even more important for a startup. And here's where I'm going with this.
Mm.
If you have the opportunity to work with a large major account, you have the opportunity to pull them into your ecosystem. It benefits you in a couple of different ways. One, it's a logo or a tombstone that hopefully everyone recognizes, right?
Mm-hmm.
We work with fill in the blank. Two, the revenue that you receive from them, let's face it, they have deeper pockets, and so they should be able to afford your service. Three, they probably acting as a good business partner will be able to provide you with insight, intelligence, feedback, all of those types of things that can help you further grow and scale the business.
Mm.
That's the type of strategic partnership. There's a venture capital firm that's here in New York. They have an incubator program. This is their claim to fame that because of their industry relations, they will connect the startups that are within their incubator program
Mm.
with these industry, stalwarts and see if they can't get them on a fast track. You want to grow your revenue up and to the right, that mythical hockey stick revenue graph that everybody's in search of, get some large enterprise accounts, right? I mean, this
Mm.
is I did a lot of work with the University of London, and the thing that we recognized in our studies there, or the research that we conducted, is that, when it comes to venture funding, everybody always wants to think of the traditional capital raise, or they want to think of debt funding. But
Mm.
there's a third leg of the stool, and that's customer funding. In other words, how can you have that relationship with a large enterprise account
Yeah.
so that way the revenue stream begins? It also has the benefits that I previously mentioned, which is not only do you get the revenue stream, you get the logo or the tombstone everybody recognizes, but you also get the all important feedback for how it is that you can further refine the offering of product or service, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It, the customer revenue is vastly underestimated. Vastly underestimated. And the reality is chasing VC money is a completely different game. There are different people with different objectives than the customers and the user. And so you have to craft a narrative that sometimes can contradict the one that you'll give customers. And so you're really chasing two different birds.
And it's exhausting. Let's face it, to raise capital, if you do it right, you need to do it consistently, and it's never done until
Whoops. Oh, we we lost Sam for a second. So in the meantime, I'll just refresh. Sam, you may have turned off your camera, or I don't hear you as well. So I'm gonna welcome everyone back to the stream. Again, this is a live. You can you can see it. Don't hesitate to introduce yourself in the comments so I know that you're here. If you have any questions for Sam or myself, feel free to write them in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer those as fast as possible. There we go. Oh, he's back.
Yeah.
There we go. Welcome back.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So you were saying, chasing VC money can be exhausting, can be a full-time job.
It should be, and it needs to be, because raising capital is never done until the money's in your bank account and you can spend it. We have, one of the tech startups that I led, we were fortunate enough, we raised $10 million straight out of the chute. But it was one of those things where, if I've seen it over the years where some of the folks that I work with in a venture funding, raising capital, they get, not only they find the individual or organization that's going to invest in them, they get all of the paperwork signed off on. They're ready for the wire to hit the account, and then one thing or another occurs, and the money never ends up being transferred over. And it's frustrating, it's disappointing, but it is one of those things where raising capital, it's not over until the money's in your bank account. So this is just one of the three legs of the stool, as I mentioned earlier, regarding how it is that you can get venture funding, right? Raising capital is just one of the legs. Debt funding, the second leg. The third leg, customer funding options, large enterprise accounts, like I mentioned earlier. Those are some of the things, but it's a hard space out there, and let's face it. Why I'm optimistic and why I think there's never been a better time for organizations and leaders to really grasp onto new concepts is because of AI. We're working with a couple of different tech dev firms that are Gen AI forward. And the interesting thing about them is that, one of the CEOs says what used to take us 16 weeks, we can now do in 6 hours. And I think it's even better than that. I think it's like 6 hours down to 6 minutes, if that. But it is one of those things where, we went to a conference last year, and there were a couple of partners from EY that were presenting on the topic of AI and the policy and procedures. And the statistic that they shared with us, Riley, was 95% of organizations say they should have a policy and procedure, but only 25% do when it comes to AI. So 95, 25 is a 70% gap in between. We took that as an opportunity. We took it as an opportunity to go out, do some research. I was fortunate. I went through the University of Pennsylvania's AI program. And the thing that we recognized is that an AI policy and procedure is very similar to a cybersecurity policy and procedure. And I sat on a board of directors for a cybersecurity firm. And so we basically began outreaching to organizations saying, with that stat, with that quote from the EY presentation, 95% of organizations say they should have an AI policy and procedure, yet only 25% do. Which one are you, right? Or maybe you're the 5% who thinks at the top, this whole thing's just going to kind of blow over, right? I'm guessing that nobody ever said that to us, but we spent the next year plus going around implementing policy and procedures when it came to AI. And the thing that we recognized was that there's a great opportunity to implement that technology to bolster the other two, people, process, technology, right? The people and process moment. I hinted at what are the other pillars. So I'll share with you. The first pillar is strategy and AI. Why? Because if you don't know where it is that you're going, any road will get you there. And I can share with you this much, that's never a good strategy. You might as well hope. So with specificity, you should have a strategy architected with AI being a crucial component of it throughout the organization. People, process, technology, those make sense to a lot of folks. But there's two others. There's two others that are out there. I'm an accountant by training, and I find that finance and capital We talked a little bit about doing capital raises, but when it comes to capital and finance, I'm talking the business basics get overlooked. And
Mm.
this is like cash flow. And I'll come back to that here in a second. But the last leg or the last pillar in our methodology deals with accelerated growth. And if you want a copy of this five pillar, just reach out to me. I'm happy to send it over to you. But by accelerated growth, I hinted at it earlier. We talk to leaders about what is it that we're doing organically, what are we doing inorganically. Um, I think that if you begin analyzing a business, from a third party, from a neutral, which is what we are. We
Hmm.
don't have skin in the game. We also don't have emotions when it comes down to it, right? I mean, the black and the white of an accounting number is a black and white number. We hope it's not red, right? Negative numbers. But when it comes to accelerated growth, you can generally find the things that are really front and present. I'll give you a great example, and we probably shot ourselves in the foot. Um, Client wanted to work with us. They were in Australia. And one of the things that we alluded to was when was the last time you did a pipeline review? In other words, you go back through your pipeline, you identify who it is that maybe you've marked closed loss when you shouldn't have. Maybe it's just taking too long and nobody's following up at a proper cadence with urgency, right? I mean, I get it. It's last week of the month here in July, right? This is the month and this is the time of a month when people generally get excited about we need to close some business. But but it is one of those things where we shot ourselves in the foot when it came to this pipeline review. This organization doubled their top line revenue by simply going back through their close lost pipeline management principles, and kind of one of those things where it was like, yeah, good, good. I'm glad it worked. There's so if you like that, that's a tip of the iceberg moment. There's so much more that we can get into. But they kind of looked at it from the perspective of, hey, look, if we wouldn't have had that conversation with you, we would have never have buckled back through pipeline management. We would have just kept on going. So we kind of shot ourselves in the foot, I think, lost a client that
Yeah.
wasn't ours in the first place. But it was one of those things where we've stayed in touch with them. Is there going to be an opportunity to work together in the future? Sure, I think so. Um, is it right here, right now? No, it's not. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you just compounding karma at some point, and it will serve you, it will serve you later. I love the pay it forward mentality. So you can definitely have it going. I just wanna refresh the room a little bit. Welcome to the new joiners. This is a live event, not a recorded one, so you can interact with us through the comments. Today we are with Sam Palazzolo, a veteran ex Deloitte, family office owners, investors. I don't have enough enough words in my pitch to recalibrate all of that, but just rewind the presentation, rewind the video so you can check everything that he's doing. But Sam, you mentioned something very interesting that you called the five pillars, and I just want to remind that to people. Uh, the first pillar is strategy and AI. The second pillar is leadership and talent. The third one is operation and technology. The fourth one is finance and capital. And the number five is accelerated growth. So if you missed that part, I just give you like the quick summary. We have one question at least, I mean, one of many, but the first one I want to share because I think it's connected to the topic. The question is from Promise. It's what's the difference between, customer funding and bootstrapping?
yeah, I think customer funding is one of the components within bootstrapping an organization. If that is a differentiation, it's a minor point. We look at customer funding options as with strategic intent. Who are we going to go outreach to? What is it that we are going to offer them? And more importantly, what can they do with us, right? From a revenue share perspective back to us. When I think of bootstrapping in and of itself is basically we're not going to raise capital. We're not going to take on any additional debt. We're basically going to provide a product or a service, and that product or service revenue is what it is that we're going to leverage as we drive forward. that's going to be the capital that we're going to leverage in order to scale and grow the business. Customer funding, on the opposite side, and with strategic intent, this should be a strategy that you should be outreaching, connecting with large enterprise accounts, for example. The benefits are threefold, as I mentioned earlier. One, you get the logo or the tombstone, right? Which is always beneficial to be able to point towards, because those types of things, they attract other logos and tombstones, right? Especially if they're well known. But the other things associated with customer funding options, why we like them, is that twofold. One, you have the opportunity to get the all important revenue stream started. It might be at a discount, right? But sometimes to get a large enterprise account on board with you, it's worth it, right? It'll attract others. The second thing is that they also will be able to provide you with feedback, and that feedback loop, that communication channel, especially if it's tight, it can provide you with all kinds of benefits that, it could be the learning lesson, the discount that you would apply to the pricing model.
Hmm.
It's like going to school. It's an education that I'm certain most of the leaders I work with would would gladly do it for an even less amount, because the lessons can be so great.
There you go. Let me know in the comments if this was useful to you. If you have other questions for Sam, feel free to write this in the comment section. And in the meantime, I want to tease a little bit what's coming next, because as I promised, we have a little gift for everyone. Um, Sam, would you like to unveil the bonus?
I'll let you do it because
Okay.
you're better at this.
Okay. So for those who know me, focus more with startups, and Sam is the next level, helping small and medium businesses scale. And we actually decided to partner to help you all. And we really wanted to do things right, bring you like the four dish sort of experience. And so what we have is a webinar where we will be discussing a bit more on Sam's 5 pillars and my 3 pillars. I'm not gonna reveal them today, but the idea is that you'll have a chance to have a more interactive conversations with us, and we'll focus on how can you move the needle with your business or with your project so that you can finally build that thing and stop building things nobody wants. That's the first thing. So a free webinar in the day after that. So this is going to happen August 6th, and the 7th, we're going to have a 3 hours workshop where we'll be hands-on into fixing the thing. So we will not be into the world of theoretical, but really hands down with you guys to work and fix on all these things. So the techniques that we bring in this workshop, I've leveraged them with huge companies, banks, insurance, governments all around the world, as a consultant engineer. And Sam is also bringing his zillion years of experience into that as well. So this is really like the fusion of two flavors, and really dedicated to you and for you. We'll keep it very intimate so you can have as much value per hour as possible. And the idea is really to bring you actionables and work with you into getting your business in the next phase. How did I do it?
That's great. I think the things that I would add, this
Yes.
workshop, this is meant to be a workshop that's going to, with specificity, allow you to, when it's over, head right back into the office environment and begin implementing and executing immediately. This is our promise, right? This isn't going to be high level theory that we're going to try to break down. This is going to be things that are going to be strategic in nature, tactical in direction, and actionable. So strategic, tactical, and actionable is what it is that we want to do in this workshop. So if you're looking for, you know, like I mentioned, the fourth grade example that I shared with you earlier, if you're one of those leaders who's tried everything, or maybe you don't know which ones to try with specificity in a chronological order, we'll be providing you with that in this workshop. And it gets even better. It gets even better because while we're doing the free webinar on the 6th next week and the workshop next week on the 7th, it's $250. We're also going to throw out there a community think of it as a mastermind, right? But here's what we recognize, and I want those who are out there who are tuning into this to recognize it as well, that if you've been to a conference, the conference and the content that the speakers talk about, that can be really valuable. But the real value of going to a conference probably isn't in those content, keynote, the breakout sessions, etc. It's in meeting with your peers in between those sessions. It's going to the cocktail parties. It's getting the real, I want to say the real world perspective on here's what we're working on at my company. Did you all ever try to do this? And so if you've ever been to a mastermind group or if you haven't, this is a great opportunity. It's a relatively low cost. I think we're throwing it out there, Riley, at $1,000 a year. If you participate in the workshop, the 3-hour one on the 7th for $250, we'll credit the $250 towards the annual subscription to this mastermind. And we're going to get together each month. We're gonna bring folks in. We'll have a topic, but we're also going to throw it out there because guess what? We want the members in that community to bring what is front and present, their biggest challenge, their biggest opportunity. When I've run these in the past, the group that I belong to, we used to call it the $1 million opportunity. Well, today, let's face it, $1 million opportunity, nobody's going to get out of bed for that, right? Maybe. So maybe it's the $10 million opportunity, but
Yeah.
we want folks to be able to come to that community, not only live, but to also have an asynchronous 24/7 discussion thread where they'll be able to access each other and kind of bounce ideas when we're not in session for that 1 day per month. So again, we've got on the 6th of August a 1 hour webinar where we'll be reviewing my 5 pillars and your 3 pillars. The following day on the 7th, we've got a workshop. It's 3 hours in length. That is $250. And then we're going to throw this thing open. And we want to keep the momentum going because we recognize that a couple of things. One, I mentioned being able to have peer perspective. It's not only the I tried it and here's what worked, but I tried it, here's what didn't work. Don't do this. That type of feedback can be extremely helpful. That's the first thing I'll say. The second thing where these community or these masterminds can come in handy is that, look, I have run companies of myself, what felt by myself, and it was extremely, what's the saying, lonely at the top. Well, guess what? It doesn't need to be. And that's why we're putting together this type of a community that's going to get together and mastermind 1 day per month for a 12-month time period. So that way they have peers. Avoid the loneliness, get the answers you need to drive your business and yourself forward.
Yeah. 100%. I remember when I was at university, so I've got a master's degree in computer science. I remember at some point I felt really low because I was surrounded by people who were as competitive as I was and who knew everything that I knew, up to the point where I thought, why am I going to bring to society? Like, everyone knows what I know. And then it's when I exited the bubble and I talked to the regular Joe that I discovered that I had a lot of knowledge and experience that I could actually bring to these people. And so today, especially with social media, there is a lot of noise and chaos about successful people and things like that. And a lot of them are lying. And so you're comparing yourself with the visible part of the iceberg, but what's underneath the water is often gigantic and you never see it. And so with these kind of communities, you're actually hanging out with people who are really like you and you get to see real life experience and insights. And so that could help you solidify the bond. And the other thing that I love is that famous quote, don't people don't learn from their mistakes. Average people learn from their mistakes. Smart people learn from other people's mistakes. And so that's the value of those kinds of communities, is that you get direct access to learning that is unfiltered, and that you can leverage right away.
No, well said. I think it's one of those things where they say that the success breadcrumbs are everywhere, and maybe we sweep them up. We don't pay attention to the breadcrumbs, right? It's not
Yeah,
a slice or a loaf of bread. But
yeah,
I think it's one of those things where, again, these types of things in my career, this is one of the 5 items that I can point to and say, I'm glad I was a participant in that. And it's also one of those things where the thing that I'm always cognizant of and I try to avoid happening is if you've ever participated in one of those mastermind events where you were the person who was constantly giving, but you weren't receiving, your bank account was probably going down while everybody else's was getting filled. That's not very rewarding. So we don't want that type of a thing to occur, right?
yeah. 100%, 100%. We just have a couple of more minutes, so if you have any questions for me or Sam, it is your last chance to drop them in the comments. And so, as a reminder, we have a free webinar incoming August 6th, and a workshop, $250, 3 hours workshop where you will get the chance to work with me and Sam on your business. We'll find a way to make you apply the 5 pillars of Sam and eventually my 3 pillars of Scale. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment right now. Don't forget to follow Sam on LinkedIn. If you discover me as well, feel free to do that. And a couple of questions. One is, what are the big mistakes that young startups and SaaS startups are making to reach out to VCs?
Yeah, let me answer that here. I threw into the chat arena here if you wanted to get a glimpse, maybe a peek under the tent of the things we're going to talk about next week. I threw into the chat arena here on our live session on LinkedIn. It's essentially an audit or an high level. It'll give you some insight into our 5 different pillars and how they can impact your business. So I threw that in there. You asked a great question, and that is uh, from a VC perspective, what are the mistakes I see entrepreneurs reaching out to VCs, and how can they avoid them? First and foremost, nothing gets a VC excited. And I was just at an event last night here in New York, which is where I picked up this head cold, I think. Um, Great summertime head cold. It's 95 degrees here too. Uh, but nothing gets a VC's attention or excitement quite like revenue traction. And the mistake I see with organizations, especially early stage entrepreneurial initiatives, is that they're going to VCs way too early. They're either pre-revenue, they don't have a proven track record, there's no traction in the marketplace for what it is that they're doing, those types of things. But they feel as though they need to go out and cultivate a relationship with a VC. And I'll share this much with you that the vast majority of folks out in VC land are really friendly. And they'll host a meeting with you. They'll take the meeting, right? Because they want to know what's going on. And, it keeps them fresh, gives them some boots on the ground. Early stage startups, you never know, right? But it is one of those things where you and I both know that they're not going to invest. And the reason that they're not is because if you don't have the revenue stream to back up the investment from a VC,
Yeah,
you're wasting your time.
yeah,
So don't I'm not saying don't bother, but it is one of those things where don't bother wasting your time with a venture capital firm if you don't have proven traction in the marketplace, and more importantly, a revenue that could back up you approaching. Now, I'll also say this much. Angel investing isn't what it used to be. When we originally formed Tip of the Spear 13 years ago, we wanted it to be an Angel Capital Association angel group. But one, it was like herding cats. And two, I got frustrated with the angel investment model because the model essentially was one of we're going to go and we're going to take a look at all of these organizations, but 98.5% of them we're never going to invest in. In other words, the 1.5% that we are going to invest in, that's a real precision sniper shot. It's a keyhole shot, right? It is not a buckshot. But I think most entrepreneurs are of the impression that I can go to an angel group and they're going to start writing checks. That's not the case. So you've got to be real strategic on how it is that you're going to go out and attempt to raise capital. That's where I'm going with that.
Exactly. And this is exactly why we've set up this free webinar on August 6th and this workshop on August 7th to maximize your chances of getting that traction. There we go. So we're about to reach the end of this interview. And so I have two questions for you, Sam. The first
Sure.
one, and put it in your GPU. I would like you to complete the following sentence. Life is too short to something.
What is it? I'm sorry, you were breaking up on me.
If you can complete the sentence, life is too short, something blank. So save this one for your last sentence. And but before that, I want to give you the final word.
No, thank you so much for hosting today. I'm really excited about what it is we have going on next week, both the webinar as well as the workshop, and on an annual basis, the mastermind group. I know that we can help leaders out, regardless of the size of the organization or where they're at in the business journey, right? I don't care if you're just starting out, you're kicking around ideas. This can be the webinar as well as the workshop and mastermind group that can help you identify with specificity, this is what I should be going to market with right here, right now. So thank you again for hosting today. I'm looking forward to next week. Let me answer your question because it's a good one. Life is too short to, and I would fill in the blank with waste your time. Life is too short to waste your time. Uh, you mentioned it earlier in our time together here today, and this is one of the things that you and I bonded over, and that is there's all these social media gurus out there, especially on LinkedIn, who will tell you that, look, I work less than 4 hours a week, I make a couple $1,000,000 a year. Look at me and my picture of me and my Lambo. I mean, it's craziness. Okay. And I had a guy who outreached to me last year who wanted me to join his $100,000 program. He didn't have the time to talk to me in specifics in detail because he had to go to a yoga class while he was at his retreat in Costa Rica. You know, I don't know what you know about Sam, but I'm going to just share with you. If you're going to a yoga class in Costa Rica and you don't want to talk business with me, yeah, it's probably a disconnect moment. That and he had a man bun. I'm always jealous of guys who have beautiful hair. So those are a couple of strikes that nobody can come back from. But it is one of those things where these social media gurus, these LinkedIn gurus, they make it sound like it's an easy grind. And look, I'm from Detroit. Life is a knife fight for me. I haven't gotten anything because it was given to me. I went out and earned it. I also have a familial dynamic where my wife and kids feel as though daily eating is kind of a given, right? So if you're out there and you're struggling, you're trying to figure it out, my quote, life is too short to waste your time. Stop wasting your time. Join us next week. Let's see how it is we can work together.
Boom. You nailed it. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And for those watching us, this is your last opportunity. We have a free webinar August 6th, a workshop August 7th, and we'll move from theory to hands in the dirt and give you as much value as possible within those four total hours. Until then, remember one thing: life is too short to waste your time. Boom.